You are all set, sir.
Thank you, James. Okay, I'd like to bring to order the Town of Newington Anna Reynolds School Project Building Committee. It's January 28th, 2021. It's about 5:16 or so. This is a special meeting. Jeff, I know you're with us. Could you do the roll call, please?
Yes, members are asked to signify their participation when their name is called. Councilor Camillo. Councilor Minor.
Here.
Mr. Sylvia.
Present.
Ms. Stam. Ms. Dugan. I think Ms. Stam is here.
She is, and
She's on mute.
So
Ms. Dugan.
I'm on.
Mr. Wetzel
Present.
and Mr. Woods.
here. Carol Dugan said she will probably join us a little bit later. She had an appointment that she had to make, but she thinks she'll be in hopefully before the meeting ends. And I was just talking to Mike Camillo, but he has not appeared to jump on yet. So hopefully he'll join us shortly.
You do have a quorum, however.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to take action on the prior meeting minutes. Are we going to do them all, Jeff, that we've done so far, or just our last meeting? And
You can if you wish, but the prior meeting minutes would be the minutes of January 14th.
yeah, I just assume do those and then we'll move forward from there. So if someone would make a motion that we accept the minutes of the January 14th meeting.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from the January 14th meeting.
Okay, motion is made by Mike Camillo, who is not with us, obviously, Jeff. Is there a second?
Second. Chris Minor.
Okay, Chris Minor seconded. Any discussion, corrections? Everybody okay with them? If yes, we'll signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone?
Aye.
So I didn't hear. Motion passes unanimously.
Steve,
Yeah.
this is Paul Vasella. Cindy Stam's having trouble getting in. She just texted me, so just want to make sure you were aware that she is listening.
Yeah, I can actually see her, so
Okay.
yeah, I can see her, so I know she's a part of us. And
All right,
Jeff,
thank
you have that Cindy is with us?
Yes, I do.
And she actually waved.
We
Yeah.
only have one person missing at this point in time.
Right, which is Carol Dugan, correct. Okay,
And
so
I got $1 that she'll smile eventually.
she has been smiling.
I'm annoyed that I can't get this right,
There you go. You got it now.
Got it?
except I can only see myself and nothing else. And the wheels just keep turning, saying waiting.
Yeah. Well, we could see you and we can hear you, so that's the important part. Public participation is the next item on our agenda. James, let's see here. We
We
have,
have 9 attendees. Anybody who's interested can use the raised hand feature in the Zoom application in the participants window or *9 on their telephones. I know we were having a problem with this last night, so hopefully it works tonight.
yeah, it did
Great,
not
so
work well last
I
time.
have I have access to none of those, just so you know. I'm just gonna watch you guys. Watch myself.
Do you see the bar at the bottom of your window, Cindy?
It won't let me in. I just get the screen saying video preview waiting. So I have nothing. It won't let me do anything.
So I don't see anybody, James, and
I don't either.
okay, so we're going to move on then. The next is we're going to discuss and take action on the subcommittee's recommendation. We had a great meeting last week. I'm going to, we've narrowed it down to 7 firms. I'm going to let Chuck kind of lead the conversation. Hopefully you all got the email that we sent out, giving you a little bit of information on who we selected. Chuck, you want to take it from there?
Sure, Steve. Chuck Warrington with the Colliers Project Leaders. If we could let John Coppola share, I think he's going to bring up the letter that we sent out, Steve.
Okay.
With the recommended.
Okay, give me just a moment. I'll go in and change that real quick.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Yeah, so if you just want to scroll down there, John, to the firm. So, yeah, so we met last week with the subcommittee, Steve, Dr. Brummett, Lou, Mike Camillo, ourselves, Jason Smith, the principal. I'm not sure if I missed anybody. I apologize if I did.
No, I think that's everybody.
Yeah, so we went through, obviously we had a great turnout with 16 firms submit. Great turnout for this project. As we stated in the last meetings, every firm that submitted is qualified, and not minimally qualified. All these firms do work really, for the most part, they all do OSCGR work in K-12 in Connecticut. We work with many of them, even currently. So from Kyers, we can attest that most of them, they know the process. They know the paperwork associated with that. Again, all qualified. So, with that being said, and you're looking at, some of the criteria, experience, they all have it. They're all OSCGR. A lot of them that are very local, relatively close, to your proximity. So as we, talked last time, we recommended going from 16 down to anywhere from 6 to 8, and we kind of landed on 7 for a multitude of different reasons. And I think this panel, Steve is in the industry and certainly has worked with some of them, quite a few of them, I'm sure. We've worked with quite a few of them. The district, Lou, Marine, have worked with them in some capacity. And as we went through them, it really came down to if there were any that maybe, if anybody had a less than positive experience or not one that wasn't stellar, maybe we recommended putting them to the side, because again, there's so many firms that are talented here for that. And ultimately, the firms we came up with, we'll scroll down here, and we'll come back and we'll visit these and we'll kind of give you some reasons why. Drummy, Rosine, Anderson, based out of South Windsor, Connecticut, so they're local. Friar Architecture, right in Farmington, not too far away. Let's see, these are JCJ Architecture. They did the 2000 additions and connectors and have worked on the project prior. Castle Booz Associates out of New Britain, very good firm as well. Kenneth Boris and Associates, a little bit smaller firm that I'll opine on later. We've worked with them in the past, had really good success with them as well. Silver Petroselli Associates, not too far away in Hamden. They do a ton of school work, very applicable to the work we're doing now. And then Tecton Architects in Hartford as well. So, the farthest firm is only 30 miles away, which is really not far at all. So if we go back up to the top, maybe John, maybe to opine on these. Drummy, Rosine, Anderson. This was one of our recommendations. We've done, we're working on the 5th project with them in probably the last 5 years. Put out a really good quality product. What I think really sets them apart is their attention to their clients and their follow-up. They stay with you throughout the project. They're extremely attentive. They listen to their clients. I can attest to that personally. And they'll, if something's not right during the design process, they're going to work and get it right. And I can give you stories on that. But I think their attention to their clients is a huge factor. And their designs are good. Their documents are good as well. Friar Architecture, I think we worked with them a little bit. I think somebody else might have had some experience with them that made a recommendation. Steve, I'm not sure if it was you or someone else.
I've done some work, and I think they've also done some work for Newington for the board.
Yeah.
Yes, they have. They have.
So, and just to touch it, we also were looking a little bit at MEP engineers with Drummy Rosane. You can see they have consulting engineering service out of Milltown, CES. Have a ton of experience with them. Have no concerns with them. They do a ton of school work, renovation work, I can list off a ton of projects we've done with them. Structural engineer, there's not gonna be a lot of structural on this project, so not too worried. Civil, it's very modest. So that's what we were saying in the last meeting, the MEP. Fryer, again, CES in that group there. Same company, of course. Santo Domingo Engineering at Hartford Structural, again, it's going to be small. Pan American PAC Services, good estimator. We've used them in the past, and we can attest they have good experience in quality estimator. Go on to the next one, John. JCJ, again, they did the 2000 additions to this. They also assisted with submitting the renovation status this past summer and fall. So they do have some knowledge of the building. Their MEP engineers is IES. They also do some commissioning services. I don't have any personal experience with that group other than from a commissioning side in New Fairfield, Connecticut. The IT consultant, Weston Sampson, civil engineer, really good. Know a couple folks over there. D'Agostino Associates from IT is very good. Worked with them in North Haven, top notch. Mackey Engineers, they're a well-known structural engineer if anybody's known them. And then the cost estimator, we actually engaged with AM Fogarty ourselves in Massachusetts. Superb estimator, and that is going to be very important on this project and any for that matter. Castle Booze, local, again, they do a lot of schools as well. I haven't had the privilege of working with them directly. My colleagues have. RZ Design Associates, I've worked with them recently. Very good MEP firm. Bob, the owner, is fantastic to work with. BSC Group, again, the civil's pretty straightforward. IT, I'm not familiar with Advanced Technology. I can't attest to them. Suzak Structural, they're around, do a ton of work. And then cost estimator, PM&C, another top-notch estimator for sure. We're very familiar with them at Colliers as well. And I think Castle Booze, if I remember, Steve and Lou, they have a lot of history, done a lot of work in the district, if I recall the conversation there.
Yeah, that is correct, Chuck. Actually, John Castle lived in Newington for most of his adult life.
Yeah, so familiar with the town, a lot of history. Kenneth Borison Associates, this is a smaller firm. I worked with them on a couple of projects down in Fairfield, Connecticut. Very similar type projects where their addition, renovation, phase construction. Quality of their documents, top notch. Very few errors and omissions on their behalf. I can't say enough about their work. Their designs are very practical. When we're thinking about, the exteriors are going to be redoing the skins in the older classroom wings, probably. I think their design, for what it's worth, will mesh well with Newington based upon what we understand, what you're looking for. Good brick and mortar, solid buildings, timeless designs is kind of what we're anticipating. For them, PM&C, again, good estimator, RZ, Langen Civil Engineers, one of the best in the state for sure. So good team overall. And CES, of course. That Silver Petrocelli out of Hamden. A lot of, you can see they have the MEPs in-house, and I think it was mentioned, I think Mike Camillo, you mentioned last week, or inquired of having them in-house team. That certainly lends some efficiencies, having the architect and structural and civil engineers in-house, or actually Michael Horton's are structural, but MEPs in-house. There's civil, Benesh, they've been around. D'Agostino, IT is good, and NPR, I haven't worked with them before. But Silver, we just, we're in the process of construction with Gilbane Building down in Fairfield, Connecticut. It's going well. It's on budget, under and on schedule. So that's good. And we finished a small golf course clubhouse renovation in Fairfield. Provided great service. The design came out beautiful, and finishing up very well. And then last but not least, Tecton Architects. out of Hartford. They also have CES engineering consultants on their staff. Fuss and O'Neill out of Manchester, good firm. They've been around a long time. D'Agostino, Michael Horton for the structural, know them, and then Pat Group, again, a good estimator. So, overall, from our experience, these teams have all, we've worked with just about all of them. They all have good reputations, qualified, with pretty good teams behind them.
Okay, thanks, Chuck. So again, we've got it narrowed down to these 7, and we're here today to kind of get your approval that you are okay with what we did. I'll be honest with you, it probably wasn't the most scientific reduction in numbers because we had so many. It was more who we worked with before, who we know has done a good job by either personal or recommendations that came through the trades to me, that people we should work with, as well as the other people that sat on the committee. We will take a much harder look at these 7 to narrow it down to the 4 that we'll bring back to the committee for a recommendation. And then when we get to that 4, we will obviously sit with full interviews with the committee to then select the architect that's going to take us through this project. But I think we have 7 good firms at this point to narrow our list down to 4. And I kind of open it up to the group and see what your thoughts are. If you have any things you would like to add, delete, change, this is the time to speak up. Nothing? Oh, Jeremy, I see your hand.
Okay, sorry.
Hey,
about that.
excuse me, Jeremy. James, it's working, which is a good sign.
I know, I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
So we mentioned a little bit about having the in-house MEP engineers with Petroselli here and Associates out of Hamden. Can you elaborate a little bit as to what efficiencies that does bring, having that in-house? Does that cut down on timelines? Is that a cost savings to us in the project, or how does that benefit us to have them right on premise there?
Chuck, you want to answer that?
Sure. I think certainly from the cost perspective, Jeremy, they can control all that. Obviously, where when you're going out to another consultant, they're giving them a proposal to incorporate in their overall price. So obviously they have there's going to be some more control because it's their own staff. So they can, I think there's a little bit of advantage there. As far as the coordination, I mean, they're obviously, well, maybe not now with COVID, but theoretically sit next to each other. But frankly, it's not that much different, with another firm, right? With IT now, we can collaborate very, very easily via Zoom and others. So with respect to that, I think it's somewhat minimal. I think the key thing is a lot of these firms, frankly, they've worked together in past projects in one, way or another. I think a lot of these firms will have probably, I'd say 2 or 3 MEP firms that they probably work with, depending on workload and clients as well. So I don't think that is a huge advantage having it in-house. It's a little bit from a technical side. Those that are subbing out to RZ and IES, CES, those are all good firms. So I don't think there's any concerns there.
Can I answer your question, Jeremy?
Yeah, that helps definitely.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Steve. And then I'll get to you, Chris.
Thank you. In my review of the documentation, is there any identified software that they're using in order to generate the drawings, such as AutoCAD or MyCAD or anything of this nature, so that we have a historical record versus just having another roll of drawings sitting in a closet somewhere?
I can tell you, Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, the standard these days is Revit. Every firm here is using AutoCAD Revit. It's 3-dimensional building information modeling. I don't And I don't know, Steve, I don't know of any firm that's not using Revit these days.
Yeah, I don't either.
That's all I wanted to confirm.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's it.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Steve. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, going from our 16 initial down to 7 is definitely a daunting task because there needs to be a process of elimination because ultimately there's only going to be one. The question I've got is there any reason to not involve the full committee to see the process from 7 to 4? So they have a better understanding when the 4 begins to bring it down to the selection of 1. I know that, a lot that are on the committee may not have had building experience, but I would just be curious to the continued reduction to 4 to at least find out, what the mindset is to arrive at that number and, that particular group of participants at 4. Any thoughts from anyone on that?
Yeah, I can try to take a stab at that, Chris. One, we're trying to move this along as quickly as possible. So setting up with a full committee would obviously take a little bit longer. We have these scheduled for next Wednesday. We are going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning and go through all 7 of them. But before we get to the 4, we will do the same as we're doing today. We're going to bring the list of 7 back to you and tell you how and why we got to the 4. And if you want somebody included, then we need to sit as a committee and decide who will get put in and which one comes out. We just thought it was the most efficient way to keep this moving forward so we don't fall behind any further on the project. That's basically right. They've all been notified. And again, it is set up. Anybody else want to weigh in? And it's hard for me to, when we have something up on the screen, although I have the participant list up. So if you do raise your hand, I should be able to see it. I'm scrolling back and forth, but I don't see anybody's hand up. Am I missing it? No. Chuck, anything you want to add to that, or John?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I definitely, Steve, I can understand, moving it forward, but at the same time, I do understand, having, the whole, we can do it either way. It's really up to your committee and what you guys collectively feel it would be the best process. We're here to facilitate whichever direction you collectively think is the best way to go, with that. So we're not the final selection, maker there for you.
And I understand that, but go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. The only suggestion that I have is it's more of a CYA and my personal paranoia is that we have it documented of what the vetting process was that Chris was alluding to. It's just for historical purposes. I've always found that I always get challenged 3 months, 6 months from now. So how did you come about this decision? What was the process, the vetting process? And I know that I've purposely have abstained from trying to be involved with this selection, but if we at least have it documented that these were the vetting criteria that we applied as a committee to reach the 4 and then to reach the 1, we can at least have a historical archive to share with future individuals that may join our board, or things of that nature. That's the only comment I have.
Okay, I suppose we can go back and do that from the 16 to the 7. We definitely will be doing it from the 7 down to the 4 because we have 30-minute interviews scheduled each one of these. We'll be taking some notes. This next round is really trying to meet the lead players in the project from the architectural firm and kind of see how much they already know about our school. And at least that's how I know I'm going to make my mind up. How well have they, dived into Anna Reynolds School? to see if they deserve to move forward. And then the other option is always price, although I'll be very surprised if the dollars come in far apart. I believe it'll probably be less than 0.5% from high to low, which is a substantial amount of money on a project this size. But I don't know that it would sway the committee in the end, just on money. If the one you really wanted was a little bit higher percentage-wise, but you knew that you'd get better documents out of it, it might be well worth the advantage of paying that little bit of money up front to save it at the back end. But
Yeah,
I mean,
Stephen, I was going to
Go ahead.
clarify, we're not requesting pricing at this point. That'll be the next step.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
From the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, for the 4, right.
Right. So, and I thank you for sharing, Stephen. It's just a matter of I know it's a little bit of administrative headache, but it's just a matter of documenting the vetting criteria. You know, oh, they wore a gray suit. Oh, that's check. That's a plus. Oh, wait a minute. They showed up in Hawaiian shirts, and that's a negative. I don't know what the vetting process is that you're wanting to apply. And I think if we could just get that documented, be it ever so cursory or high level, whatever, at least we have a history of how we got to the decision point. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, we can do that, Steve. Chris Minor, I think you have your hand up again.
Yeah, just to follow up on Steve's remarks, at this point with 7 candidates left, my experience would be by allowing the full committee to hear the presentations of those 7 and to hear how you're calibrating them to bring them down to 4 would further substantiate, once you get to the final 4 selection, of what each individual committee member should be looking for and listening to. And I'm presuming once we go to 4, that there will be a formal scoring methodology to use to come up with whoever scores tops for consideration. Am I on target or off target with this? I'm just going off of experience.
That you hit it right on the head. That when we get down to the last 4 that are moving forward, then it becomes a really formal process. Involves the whole committee. We can bring them in probably for 40 to 45 minutes to do an interview and a presentation, and then have 10, 15 minutes for questions and do a scoring, and then meet after we listen to the 4 as a group and narrow it down to 1. So that's how that will happen. So what's in play right now, and we need to hear from the rest of the committee members, does the rest of the committee want to be involved in taking it from the 7 to the 4, the recommendation, even though you'll have a shot before we do narrow it to 4, we'll make a recommendation to you, but it's not in cement. It is only a recommendation. Or do you want to be involved in the 7 interviews? And I believe if we'd have to reschedule it because, well, today's Friday. Jeff, you could weigh in, Jeff Barron.
Yes, I would have to issue a meeting notice for the committee to have a meeting if more than 3 members wish to attend.
I understand that, but what's the notice? 24 hours, 48
Yes.
hours?
Yes, 24 hours, so you would have time to do that.
Okay, so we do have time to do that. Again, they are all scheduled for 8 o'clock. It's the 3rd, correct? Chuck?
Yeah, next Wednesday from 8 to basically noon, thereabout.
Technically 8:30 till noon. 8 to 8:30 would just be a preliminary, discussion between our group, leading into the first interview that's scheduled for 8:30. And then they're every half hour up till 12 o'clock.
So if you want, we can go ahead and we can ask Jeff to post it. And if anybody on the committee wants to sit in, they're welcome.
Like I said, Steve, I'd like that opportunity, and I encourage anybody else that has the ability to be present for it, just to hear the process and understand how the process evolves. Because once it comes to 4, they're going to be expected to cast a vote as to which firm to proceed with. And I think it's just a lot easier if they could almost get a secondary chance at realizing how you get there before you get to the final 4. It's that much easier.
Yeah, Chris, I'm not opposed to it at all. So how I'd like to move forward then is that what I just suggested. We'll make it a formal meeting. And so it will be on Zoom and it will be on the town's website. So anybody can participate from the public if they would like. And again, if the committee members can make it, they make it. Although I guess, Jeff, we would need a quorum, correct? So we then have to have 3.
Right.
But
Yes.
that doesn't sound like it's a
If you're going to
problem.
have if you were to have a formal meeting. So I would think you would want to probably have both a subcommittee and a meeting of the whole. We'll post a meeting notice for the committee as a whole, but the subcommittee should continue to hold their meeting as they normally have. And really, it is a subcommittee meeting which members may attend. And
Okay.
there won't be any formal action taken at the subcommittee meeting. Any formal action would be occurring at the meeting of the committee as a whole, which would be after the subcommittee meeting has ended. I
Okay.
would anticipate that you would probably still want to have a meeting either that evening or the following week.
Okay. Steve, Sylvia, you have your hand up.
Actually,
Yeah,
he was the
I
first.
just wanted to share that if I can make it, I'm definitely interested to listen in on the subcommittee's evaluations. That's it.
Okay. And Chris, did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one final piece is once we get to the level of 4, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve or Jeff, is that becomes the formal process of executive session and contract negotiations. Am I correct in that? That that's no longer public at that point?
Only if you vote to do that. You can be public if you wish.
Yeah, typically we don't do that in executive session, Jeff. I don't remember the last time we did a selection of
Now,
architects.
the town hall committee did go into executive session to make
Okay.
their selection.
Okay.
But the proposals were not public, I don't believe, as I recall. There was executive action that was required to in effect not make them public, and there is formal action on the part of the committee to go into executive session. And I'm not sure how that works with Zoom, to be perfectly honest.
I can address that, Steve,
What the
if you'd like.
town hall did was long before Zoom came along. So
Yep.
the town hall committee physically left the room and went into a separate room.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could do that on Zoom. Actually, James, you want to weigh in on that? You probably
Yeah.
had more experience.
We have something that's called a breakout room. We updated our Zoom to allow for that. So we can move anybody in and out and keep the public out of that discussion, but still keep the meeting going. We use it on the council side now. So you would effectively have the meeting like we're doing right now, still showing out to the public, but we would have you guys sign out from it, go into the new meeting, technically, where our breakout room is opened up. You go into it, have your discussions, and can come back out and come into the regular meeting afterward again. So
Okay.
you end up logging in and out. It takes a little bit more, but we can
Yeah.
still do the same process.
Yeah, I've done the breakout rooms a couple of times with some other meetings that I've had to attend, and they actually work out pretty well. And to be honest with you, the person who is hosting that has complete control. They can take you out of your room and put you right back into the main at the exact time that they allow you 20 minutes. You got 20 minutes, so you got to get your work done. So it might not be a bad way to move forward. I'm fine with that. Again, I think that's how we should move forward for this meeting. Hopefully, as many of you as possible can come in. Chris, I see your hand is still up, so go ahead.
Yeah, just to piggyback to that, because once you get to that point, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, is your ability to have the incoming Final Four selection, have it known that they are in the final grouping and to prepare their final cost analysis, versus if it's done in a public setting, it's open to the public at that point versus bringing them in a closed envelope to the meeting. Correct, Jeff?
That would be correct, yes.
So that's another consideration that really should be done privately, so one firm is not concerned over the next firm's ability to know their pricing in advance.
Steve, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, so the way the process works, and this is in many towns, is once you've shortlisted, you go through this next step and you shortlist the 4. It's technically no longer a public process. You've shortlisted to 4. We're going to be drafting an RFP, the actual request for proposal, which is going to have a lot more detail. It's going to include schedules. It's going to include the contracts that they're going to be required to execute with the town, and in a lot more detail than the RFQ. Those only go to those 4 firms. We don't put it on DAS. You don't put it for the public to see because there's probably some security issue. If we do floor plans, that only goes to those 4. So those 4 will be given a couple of weeks to prepare a presentation. If they want to put together a written approach, more specific to the project, those 4 firms, we're going to schedule a site walk with them so they can actually get into the building and see it. We'll coordinate that with the schools. They'll be given control budgets based upon what you've passed already. And then when they come into the interview, they won't submit. There's a couple ways you can do it. They don't submit the proposals for public opening for everybody to see. No, they're not going to see each other's. They can bring their proposals that day, and we can open and rip those that day in executive session. All the interviews should be in executive session. Most of them are, because you don't want competitors seeing, and that's where most towns do it, but they're not going to submit it in an open session where they can see each other's price ahead of time. That won't happen that way. The way they do it, you'll see them. What we typically do is we'll do an analysis sheet. They're going to get a fee proposal form. They all have to fill out the same. We're going to stack them up side by side. You can see your totals and compare those, I'll say in private. It's not a public opening.
And that's the way we did it with the town hall process, to allow that to be done under executive session for, I believe we used contract administration as the reason for the executive session.
Yeah, just the agenda typically just has to say that per whatever the statute is, we're going to executive session. It has to say that on the agenda. Otherwise you can't go into executive session without that.
Yeah, and we have to list the reason
I'm sure
why.
Jeff knows that already.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. That's it. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Cindy, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand before, but it's very difficult.
So
to
I'm a
do
little
stuff on
late
the
to the
screen.
table. I'm a
Yep.
little late to the table, sorry, but I want to go back to the rubric, and I just want Steve and Chris to clarify. Were you indicating that you felt that there should be a formal rubric for the 7 interviews or this process, or are you all okay with the formal, I call you a rubric, for just the last 4? And then the other thing is, I am available to sit down on those, but I also want to make sure that this subcommittee is going to be the only people interviewing, and we are there for informational reasons, and we're not going to interject in these. And I think that's where your sessions will get too bogged down if that happens. So those are the things I needed to say. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Steve, do you want to answer that I think I know what your answer is, but obviously go ahead and respond if you would like. Mr. Sylvia? You're muted, Steve. Steve, you're muted. Steve, you're muted.
I'm muted. I'm sorry.
There you go.
I was double tasking with another customer, so I missed the question.
Oh, the question is, do you want to recreate the rubric for taking the 16 to the 7, then the 7 to 4? Is that what you're looking for, that kind of trail? Correct?
Correct. Right. The type of criteria that, out of state, whatever, not enough support staff or whatever the criteria was to take us to the 7, and then the criteria that we want to, that the subcommittee will utilize to evaluate to bring it to 4. And then eventually we'll have the criteria of how we want to apply after the interview process with the 4. So that's all I'm looking for, is a historical trail.
Okay. Okay, and that's what I thought. So Cindy, you still have your hand up. Do you want to respond, or you just not take your hand
No,
down?
no, I'm good. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just didn't undo that. Thanks.
Okay, and then Chris, I see your hand is back up, or?
Yeah, just real quick, that's the easiest way to do it, because then you have a historical value to how they were vetted. And if you're ever challenged down the road, that you have a process that was established and in place. And once you go to the 4 is where you're going to bring out some type of, I would imagine, a formal type of scoring system at that point to come up with the cumulative totals. Am I accurate in that part?
Yes, I believe you are accurate in that. That's when we get to the 4, it becomes a very formal process. Again, price doesn't necessarily dictate with professional services. We need to pick the firm that we believe that will do the best job for us moving forward.
Correct. Okay.
But we need to have reasons for that, and we should. And I really want to try to keep as much of this out in the public as we can. And I realize when we're negotiating price and having some questions that need to go to the individual firms. And again, with the world we're living in now, thinking back when we did this, we did it in the open, but nobody came to these meetings. We weren't on Zoom. They were not televised. So basically the door was closed. Only one architectural firm came in. So nobody knew what the other ones were seeing or saying. We live in a different world now. And I guess I've got to realize that it's 2021 and not 1960.
Yeah, I think this process, the way that it was done this way of doing the RFQ followed by the RFP is, I think, more efficient. We didn't do this on the town hall project. We went straight to the RFP, and that definitely made it more difficult than this way. So I think this is the better way to go to get to the end.
Okay. And again, we weren't trying to be, to exclude anyone or from the process. All we were trying to do is to expedite the process, to keep it moving as fast as we can, because once we do pick the architect, then our work slows down for a while until the architect has something to bring back to us, unless there's questions along the way. But then once, we get the schematic designs, then we'll be meeting on a regular basis for many, many, many weeks. That will roll into years, because it's going to be a long project. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great project. Anything else on this subject? If not, we're going to set this up for February 3rd. Jeff, post a meeting, so it'll be a meeting of the building committee. And really the only action item that is going to be the subcommittee is going to interview the 7 candidates that we're going to then reduce down to 4. And then when do you want to meet as a full committee? Do you want to do it right after? I mean, that's going to be a long day. So now that puts us from 8 o'clock in the morning or 8:30 in the morning until probably 2:30. Go ahead, Cindy.
I already have in my calendar that we have the 4th scheduled for 5:15. So
Oh,
maybe
you're
the
right.
next day.
Yep. So let's do that. We'll meet back at 5:15 to make the recommendations to you. Is everybody okay with that? And whoever obviously can join in, you're more than welcome. Steve, you want to mute your microphone and take your camera off, you're welcome to listen. The only thing I didn't ask, but I'm assuming it's going to work, this will have to go through obviously the town Zoom. And Jim, I haven't seen you jumping up and down saying there's no way you can make that happen. So I'm assuming it's going to happen, James.
I can always make it happen, but I do have a question for you in the process.
Okay.
So because the 8 o'clock, 8:30 to 12:30 meeting is technically of the subcommittee, my recommendation would be that the rest of the committee just be attendees, not have an invitation to it, come in and listen like they were the public. That way you're not tied to having an actual meeting. They could just sign into the Colliers as an attendee. That would save you from having to do that. And then you guys can all come back on Thursday night for your 5:15 to have your full discussion as a board.
I'm okay with that.
Because that way you don't turn it into an actual early morning meeting of the whole board, because you're not going to have them having any interactions.
Correct. Jeff, are you okay with that?
Yes,
From
as
an
long as
FOI?
there's no discussion or business by the committee as a whole, then you're good with that.
Okay, that's how we should do it then, I think. So that it doesn't have to be recorded on the town's website, correct? We could
Correct. That's just your interview process. You
Yep.
know, we could put the Colliers link up so the public can actually still see it.
Yep.
Because it's still a subcommittee meeting. You guys are going to be holding an interview.
Mhm.
Or you could choose to just put it out to the membership. But at this rate, if the membership's sitting there to listen to it in an open session, it's really the same thing. So I think we put it up on the site. We don't have to record it because it's not a town meeting, but you're just
Right.
allowing the public to come in and listen on the interviews if they had just been held in the council chambers originally.
Okay, the only question I'll throw out there though, if that's the case, then other architectural firms could also listen in.
Thank you.
So that would be a problem.
They could technically, but they probably would have been able to do that before as well, unless you guys went into executive session.
Yeah, you're right.
So if they chose to, they could have sat in the back of the room ahead of time.
Yeah, as actually some of these people who are actually attendees right now could be from
Right.
architectural firms or, one of their subs. Chuck, Jeff, this is now getting a little bit over my head. How do you think we should do this? I don't have a problem with what was just suggested. I think it's actually a pretty good plan, other than that one little snag. Is it an issue that other people are going to be listening? I mean, we're not talking money, so I don't know if it really matters. And I also don't know if anyone's going to sign in either. That's a long meeting to sit through. But
Yeah, I mean, Steve, typically, like you said, if I would hope, as a professional consultant and out of professional courtesy for their fellow, competitors or colleagues, if you will, the other firms wouldn't sit in. I wouldn't sit in on another OPM's interview. It just isn't the right thing to do, and out of integrity for the process. In that regard, as far as the public, them sitting in on it, making them attendee, that's totally up to you guys. If you just want, be able to have a view into the meeting and without participation, we just have to set it up. I also make sure I get it set up that way so we make them.
yeah, I mean, the reason we're setting it up that way, to be honest with you, is really just to get the committee members in so they'll be able to hear it.
Yeah.
That was,
I mean, it's not necessarily a public meeting. It sounds like because you don't have a quorum, so it's not necessarily a public meeting. I guess that's a technicality that either, Jeff and
yeah,
Jim
I am
would have.
comfortable with moving forward and not putting it out to the public, but I don't want to step on Jeff's toes or the town's toes and do something that isn't going to look like we're trying to do something behind the scenes. I want to try to keep this as open as possible. Let's just move forward with it. I don't think they're going to do it. I really don't. I think they all have better things to do, and I don't really see, even if they did, how much is going to be gained. But unless someone objects, we're going to do it.
Superintendent Brummett has actually got her hand raised, so maybe she might want to comment on this.
Okay. Maureen, go ahead.
I'm actually just questioning, are the interviews I have in my calendar as being on Wednesday of next week? Is it actually
Correct.
Thursday?
No, it's Wednesday, the 3rd.
They're Wednesday.
Yeah,
All
they're
right,
Wednesday.
so interviews on Wednesday, then a regular committee meeting on Thursday evening.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Steve, if I can just ask for clarification, are you looking to have these invites coming from Colliers, or would Jim need to do that through the town?
Jim, I think it would come, you're just going to publish it. What Colliers would have to do is send you the link.
Well, Colliers could set up everything and just send me the link for the webinar. We can put that onto our virtual page should any member of the public want to attend it to listen in on the interview process. So that's not a problem. But that way, that would keep all the invites in your hands.
Okay.
We can coordinate with Jim if there's any questions.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So that's what we'll do. Anything else on this topic? If not, we will move on. Next is any other business pertinent to the committee? Jeff, do you have anything for us?
No, I do not.
Dr. Brummett? No? Okay. Chuck, or John, anything else to add?
No, I don't think so. This time, Steve, we'll just notify, we've already kind of, we're getting ready to notify those 7 firms, get them scheduled so they can prepare and do those interviews next week.
Okay. We'll move on to public participation. I see Susan Mazzacoli has her hand up. Susan?
Hi, Sue Mazzacoli, 149 Harris Drive, Newington, Connecticut. The back and forth about whether to make it public or not, my suggestion is that somebody from the town call Freedom of Information, just to be absolutely certain that you're following the law, and that way you won't waste 8 hours interviewing and then have to start all over again. So that's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Anyone else?
We have Counselor Minor on our side.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Steve, does any formal action have to be taken for the 16 of the 7 at this point, or no action needs to be taken?
No formal action needs to be taken.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. Any other comments by members? If not, a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, and second it. Actually, we don't need a second for adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we
Aye.
stand adjourned. Good night, everybody. It is, what time is it? 6:07.
Night.
Thank you very much.
6:30.
Jeremy, take care of yourself.
And try.
And your family. I wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, take care.
Hold out for 1 second, Steve.
Yep.